After 3 years of this seasonal content system, I think it's a good time to talk about the state of Destiny 2. Now, we know that this discussion has been started ultimately by Glad's video that he posted, which if you have not watched, I'll post in the description down below. However, I wanted to give my look into the situation because I thought, maybe we should have a little bit more added into the conversation and also kind of get your opinion on this. If you are a veteran player like me, you've experienced the creativity and ambition that Bungie has put in every year since the launch of Destiny 2. For example, the Dreaming City and its secrets, the Black Armory and its forges and puzzles, Warmind and its escalation protocol, the Menagerie during the Season of Opulence, even Gambit Prime during Joker's Wild. Each one of those seasons brought in new weapons, new events, and activities, bringing the creativity that Bungie is known for and taking the risks that we knew and liked. Along those actual seasons, we also had a little bit of secrets and a little bit of events that the community did discover, like for example the timed missions that happened on Io, as well as that little secret mission that we had where you can start on the farm that rewarded the exotics of Whisper of the Worm and Outbreak Perfected. Now, ever since Shadowkeep, it decided to, instead of going to that one content season type system, what we did was that we had a 4 seasonal type system with a battle pass that we are now familiar with today. Now, still, during this whole season at the time, in the beginning, they still had, made some unique and creative risks when it came to actually providing those seasons. Now, of course, majority of them were very well received, with the only exception being Season of the Worthy, where it was not the most appetizing in terms of content because it was very boring and very slow, but it still was something that was seen as a risk because they also were creative with a live event at the end of the season, which is kind of a nice thing, even though again, season wasn't that good. Now, as we look at it, pretty much the last year and a half of content that we've gotten follows pretty much the same cookie cutter experience. Other than the actual major content drops, it essentially goes, you get a cutscene to start the seasonal story questline, you do the first mission, and then you go to the vendor where you have to meet the person you're going to be interacting with, sort of. It's not even really an interaction, it's just, hey, here's an upgrade screen. This is the items that you're going to be grinding for. And then you go through it, you get a couple of the steps done, and then you're time gated to wait until next week. And at that point, there's nothing really else for you to do outside of just, hey, play Crucible, play Strikes, play Gambit. And normally, which every season will provide, is either going to be a raid or a dungeon, which is not too bad, but the thing is that it makes the previous dungeon become really not relevant because you're not going to get pinnacle drops from there unless it's the rotational season, and the same thing goes with the raid as well. Anything that's previously been put in becomes just a, oh hey, here's something you can do, but you're not going to get any pinnacle drops anytime you do those encounters unless you complete the last one, and that's it. There really isn't much to it when you really think about it, because that power grind is still limited to either one dungeon or one raid. And even if you consider the rotational, it's still just one extra piece of power armor that, again, doesn't really impact it as much unless you go through it multiple times on different characters, which, again, that's 3 different pieces for just one raid that you can just go on one run for either the dungeon or even the raid, which will have more. Now, we could technically add in Grandmasters to endgame content, but again, those don't even come in until 6 weeks after, and then at that point, you're just going to be in this weekly rotation until another 6 weeks, and then, oh hey, now you can do all of them at once, unless you have a gilded title, where at that point it's just, yeah, here you go right ahead, have fun with it. And the problem is with that is that you get into that system of just a boring, tedious cycle of do A, get upgrade B, complete C, get reward D, and then you rinse and repeat. It doesn't really feel like you're doing anything to kind of further progress your stuff, but more of just, okay, here is XYZ, great, done. Now I have to go and struggle because unless I'm getting some decent stuff, I have to do strikes, which again, if you are a veteran like me, have already gone through at least 10 times each. Crucible, where 90% of the time, because of now the skill-based matchmaking, you're just playing up against sweats, which isn't too bad. But if it's only in competitive, I would be fine with that, not in casual play. And not only that, Gambit is, well, it's Gambit. We just have like 3 to 4 maps, and that's it. There's nothing new about it every season. Like, they never add in extra content for that. At this point, it feels like how Destiny 1 was, where we would get like a huge expansion and then a bunch of stuff to do, but then nothing for like the rest of the year until the next expansion. When it comes to this and Destiny 1, the only real difference is hey, you get 3 months of extra content. Like, yeah, you get a new dungeon and a new raid, but so far we've just gotten reprised raids and then just 2 dungeons. Actually, in this case, 3. And that's if you had to pay extra for it. Which is not something that someone like me would be kind of enticed into. Now, is that a bad thing in total? Let's kind of go off of that. In some circumstances, it is. But not entirely. If you are a newer player who came in during the New Light time, then this is kind of what you are expected to do. As more games kind of go into this format, Bungie has kind of taken the more casual approach, making it easier for you to play the game, go through the information, get the story, especially if you are working like a 9-to-5 job, where you don't have to commit so much time to playing the game to get a benefit out of it. You can, over the weekends, just an extra hour here or there if you want to do a raid or a dungeon, but it's still, you can be very casual with it. You don't have to go all out every single day. Now, if we were to actually look at it as a veteran player, especially ones who have come before Beyond Light, hell, let's even say even before the Shadowkeep update, it doesn't look good. Because essentially at that point, we've started to kind of see more of a conservative look of Bungie, which seems out of character, especially when it comes down to what we've seen beforehand. I mean, we haven't seen reused weapons as often until now. It's always been something unique, it's always been something cool. It actually had a lot of creative intuition when it came down to that wasn't just limited to the content drops, like Beyond Light or Witch Queen in this case. They had major changes that came through. Now, the one thing is that risk-taking and that creativity was kind of something that we always look towards. I mean, anytime that you show off Lightfall now, it's always insane because we can now see what the creative minds are behind. But when it comes down to looking at the seasons, it's essentially, oh, this is what we have. But when you really get into it, it's just, hey, guess what? Welcome back to the cycle. Have fun, if you can. And that's it. There is, you're back into this whole weekly cycle stuff. Yeah, you can grind for the weapons, but once you get those weapons, well, now what are you going to do? There's not much else because the story is still going to take you 10 weeks to finish. It's not a fun time. But let's kind of go to the ultimate position that you'll see a lot of Destiny 2 creators and a lot of hardcore players may say, is Destiny 2 dead? In the short form, no, not at all. I mean, if you look at the time frames for it ever since Shadowkeep, Destiny 2's population has always been like at least 100,000, even around 250 to 300,000 at its lowest point. We've hit million plus multiple times, especially when it came to the content drops, but it's still just a fact of it hasn't gone down that far. Yeah, you may see it a little bit differently if you were to go on the PC, or if you kind of divvy it up, it'll look a little bit lower than that, but cumulatively, because everything is crossplay, we have to see everything as a whole. And right now, that whole has only gone bigger over time. But the one thing about that is that even though Bungie is able to maintain a really healthy player base, it doesn't mean that everything is good. Because when we really look into this and kind of see how everything is that even though they're able to maintain a healthy player base, they've kind of reduced the amount of creativity, the risk-taking, and the individualism that like each season had, and essentially focused it all onto their content drops, and then essentially make like small minor adjustments to be like, oh, it fits this story, oh, it fits that story, and here's the event for that. With honestly the most interesting one out of all of them being Season of the Plunder, because instead of it just being like, oh, here's point A, kill enemy type A, point B, do activity B, and then point C, here's boss, you actually have some sort of variety when it came into that, because instead of it being 3, you had 4 encounters. Even maybe you can even concern 5 by that one middle area between the 2 other locations. But it's still just a fact of, again, that same template is being used for everything else, making it much harder for me to really think of like, okay, what did we do for this one and what did we do for that one? Because as much as each of the season's stories are actually unique and memorable, their activities not so much, because again, that cookie cutter system of the activities still are being followed. The only difference is when it comes down to the actual story and what was impacted within there. And that's kind of the main issue for that. And I think the good thing is that when it came down to it, of course, you know, we do have people from Bungie who are saying like, yeah, okay, we understand what's going on, we understand the issues, and we'll go and make those changes for that. Now, granted, it is going to take a little bit of time. People are, you know, assuming that this isn't going to be something that's going to be immediate, obviously, but at least the fact that we are being heard, which is good. Now, the main thing is that personally for me, I'm hoping that with that being changed, we're going to go back to a more unique approach for each season. Because as much as I like the fact that we're still getting consistent story, we're still getting development throughout the city and everything else about that, I also want to make sure that I can not only remember the story of it, but I also want to see any unique changes, some events, some activities that aren't just, okay, hey, we just recycled this from the previous season, and it actually has that individualism of, alright, this activity was based around this, and not because, oh, I remember this from that. And so that's kind of something when it came down to it, that's what I'm hoping for as well. Now, if you had any comments, any opinions, or you kind of want to have a discussion about that, put that in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to kind of discuss some more from you, and also see what you guys think about it, because who knows, from my perspective it's one thing, from yours it could be something different. But until then, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. This is going to be kind of the start of the new channel. Kind of weird how this is how we're starting out with, but this is kind of where you're going to get more of the actual main kind of personal opinions, as well as more edited stuff. As you can tell by, you know, the channel name, you'll also be seeing reviews about, you know, the different games that I do play. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be moving away from my other main channel, but that channel is still going to have the Let's Plays and all that. But here is where you're going to see the more edited stuff down, where it's the reviews and other stuff like that. But until then, thank you guys for watching. If you like what you saw, do hit the like button, and also share with other people. I want to know what everyone else is thinking. Until then, take care. See you around.